First story. AITA for ruining my mom's engagement party after she abandoned me when I was 11. The author of the post is listed in the description. I, 17M, have a strained relationship with my mom, 35F, after an incident that happened about 6 years ago. My mom was super strict and a helicopter parent, so we fought a lot over my grades and the trouble I got into at school. She had essentially abandoned me, signing over custody to my dad after I had told her something along the lines of, "I hate you," and "I wish I lived with Dad." Typical things an angsty preteen says to their parent. But that fight seemed to have broke her, and she cried before dropping me off at my dad's apartment. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal, and I would just see her the next day after she proved her point, but she left me there. After that, things got essentially worse for me. My grades dropped, and I kept getting into trouble at school, almost to the point where I was kicked out. My dad never had job security, so money was tight. His GF also wasn't fond of me, saying I was dumped on them. I wanted to go back to live with my mom. I thought to apologize, but my mom had essentially moved on with her life. She went back to college to get her degree and was always studying, and later on was focused on her new work. On the weekends I would get to see her, things were tense between us. She tried so hard to be the fun parent, eating takeout and leaving me to do what I wanted, but it was so unlike her, and we became more estranged. 3 years ago, she started dating Paul, 39M, a widower with 2 daughters, 9F and 13F. She started treating his daughters like they were her own, and they started calling her Mummy, which irritated me. Eventually, they moved into my mom's house and changed my childhood bedroom into one of the daughters' room. I was livid when I found out, saying some mean things about the girls and refused to go back there for my mom's weekends, but she was confused on why I was acting this way. Because of this fight, she thought I wouldn't be attending the engagement party when she announced her and Paul would be getting married. Besides, she didn't want there to ruin the perfect picture of her new family. So I made it a point to go for the party and called her out on her behavior. I wanted to confront her and tell her she wouldn't have to bother with me after I go off to college, but I may have taken it a tad too far. Everyone kept talking about how Paul's daughters were like her children and how it would be when she had more kids, and it snapped something in me. I called her a horrible parent and told her she was trying to replace me with the little brats after she had abandoned me, along with some other insults I don't really remember. Paul kicked me and my dad out, saying I was an asshole for making his fiancée and girls cry and ruining the engagement party. He said I won't be allowed to the wedding unless I called and apologized. I may have taken it a bit too far, but my dad agrees she had it coming after abandoned a young child at an age when I needed my mother. So, AITA, and should I apologize? Verdict, not the asshole. Relevant comments. Commenter, info. Can you give examples of her helicopter parenting style? Ope. It was mostly to do with homework. She would check my work every day for notes from my teachers, whether or not it was neat and correct. She also wrote to my teachers to have my place in class changed, so I was closer to the front and would pay attention. I wasn't allowed to use the internet unless it was for school, and she made sure to check for that. She was also pretty strict about my sleep schedule and what I ate. I wasn't able to go for any sleepovers either until I started living with my dad. Top comments. Commenter, this is above the pay grade of this sub. You are a child and she is an adult and your mother. She needs to do the emotional work of creating the conditions for your reconciliation. If she can't, you need to focus on your own growth and figuring out how to establish yourself in life. It doesn't sound like she's going to be coming through on that, so you are on your own. That is of far bigger significance than whether you are the asshole or not. Take care of yourself. NTA. Commenter. Someone already said this is above this sub's pay grade. It is very obvious that you have some deep emotional issues towards your mom and you feel abandoned. Ultimately, she is the parent, and she has to take the majority of the responsibility for the way your relationship has turned out. But quite frankly, I think you need to really take a look at the role you played in this as well. You acknowledged that you hurt her feelings when you told her you hated her. You just assumed you see her later. Did you apologize to her? You said she tried to do fun things with you on the weekends, but you also said you didn't like that either. At not point do you actually say you apologized to her at all. Instead, it seems like your behavior escalated and you continue to lash out. Your mom could have possibly tried harder, but it seems like she is damned if she does and damned if she didn't. You have made your feelings of hurt and resentment and abandonment very clear in this post. At what point do you acknowledge that your mom is also a person with feelings and that you may have continuously, without apology, hurt her too? Not sure if I want to call you an AH, but I don't want to call your mom one either. Nah? Commenter. Hi, child of divorced parents here. From the bottom of my heart, YTA. Trying to help your child and being strict with them after they get bad grades and get in trouble at school is normal. You didn't like the consequences of your actions, so you lashed out, and you got exactly what you wanted. She was too strict and helicoptering, you hated it. She was the chill weekend parent, you hated it. Didn't want to live with her? Got what you wanted. Deal with your actions and stop blaming her for them, and please either apologize and change your tune or leave that woman and her family alone. Update 1. There's a lot going here, and I haven't had the time to look through everything, so I still haven't decided on what to do, but to answer some questions. Helicopter parenting. I mentioned some of the things my mom did, but it didn't give the entire picture. Some people say it was just usual parenting, but it felt so constricting, and it was very different from when I was at my dad's. I also wasn't the smartest kid out, and sometimes it felt like I was being punished for that. Did we have arguments before? My mom and I were prone to screaming matches if I didn't immediately do what she said. No, I never hit her. It was mostly shouting. Did I apologize? No, I didn't. I know that would be my single biggest regret. I don't know if that warrants the rest of what happened or if it would have changed anything. What was the trouble at school? It mostly had to do with phasing out or losing my patience. I got into a couple of fights with other kids who teased me on my home situation, but it was nothing serious. As mentioned, I'm not an academic, so there was always trouble with that. Therapy? I spoke to someone when I was younger and my parents had me see the school counselor 2 years ago, but I find it hard to talk to other people. I'm also on meds, which were supposed to help with my moods. Dad-mom situation? My parents separated when I was a baby. My dad is 40 and used to work in construction until he got injured and could no longer pay child support. When my mom transferred custody, she began to pay support. I'm with my dad full-time and my mom on weekends when I feel like going. Winter break, my mom takes me out of state to Grands where we stay with the rest of the family. I can do the math. I know how old my mom was when she had me and that I basically ruined her life, so there's no need to point that out. There is an overwhelming amount of attention on this post that is giving me mixed messages. I regret posting this because of how confused it has gotten me about my parents and childhood, but I do appreciate the support and advice, especially from other people who had similar issues. I will try and do another update when I figure out what to do. Update 2. Final update. So, a lot has happened. I never expected this post to get this much attention with so many mixed reactions, and honestly, it confused me to say the least. While this forum was blowing up, I had to go to school like normal. It's been a few weeks since the engagement party, and a kid who there had been relentless mocking me for what happened. I thought he would eventually let it go, but yesterday when he brought it again, I was cool and got into a physical fight with him. He was given detention, but I was suspended. The school called my mom and got Paul instead. Since she was in a meeting, he came and got me. Things were awkward in the car ride, and we didn't say a word to each other until he asked me if I was going to apologize to my mom. I told him I didn't even want to go to his stupid wedding. Paul was confused when I said this, and told me that my mom had gotten mad at him for saying I couldn't attend, and that she knew I wouldn't apologize if they told me to because I was stubborn. He said she had called my dad weeks ago and said I could go because she really wanted me to be there, and my dad said he would talk to me. I don't know why, but when I heard this, I burst out in tears, embarrassingly enough. I don't know if it was the suspension or reading all the comments, but I really couldn't hold it in anymore. It took me way too long to stop, and Paul was really freaked out, so he parked somewhere and tried to calm me down. I ended up telling him everything about when happened when I was a kid and how I felt about my mom. I also confessed that I wished she would yell at me or scold me for my outburst because it felt like she didn't care anymore and just hated me for what I said. I thought if I ever repeated what I wrote on this post to another person, they would think I was human garbage. But he just listened to me and let me get everything off my chest. I guess that's what being a girl dad is, huh? Surprisingly, he didn't blame me. In fact, it was the opposite. He said he understood me. He works with her, so he knew that my mom was a tough woman and he had never seen her cry before until that day and was unsure about how to approach her after, so he didn't blame me for not knowing how to talk to her after what happened when I was a child. He didn't give me details, but he assured me that my mom didn't hate me, and the situation is more complicated than what I know. Paul said I shouldn't bear all the blame, and if I was comfortable, maybe myself and my mom could go speak to the therapist he saw after his wife had passed. He was mad at my dad, though. Apparently this was not the first time my dad had said he would talk to me about something and just didn't. Paul suspected my dad wanted to get me to have another outburst at the wedding because he was still somewhat resentful towards my mother. I don't know how to take this because while my dad didn't really like my mom, I don't think he would actually do something like that. Either way, I think I owe to myself and my mom to at least try and reconciliate and deal with my trauma so I could let go of my anger towards her. I at least apologized to Paul's girls. My dad wasn't home, so I spent the rest of the day at my mom's. The 9-yo forgave me almost instantly, like she didn't actually cared, and asked me about dinosaurs for the rest of the evening. The 13-yo is still pretty mad, but mostly because Paul had her give up her new room and share with her sister. I tried to say I was okay if she took back the room. I wasn't, but it only seemed right to give it to her after what I did. But Paul said they'll make a plan when they remodeled. I knew I needed to apologize to my mom as well, but that seemed just so much harder. I know you guys recommended writing a letter, but I didn't really have enough time, nor did I know what I was going to say yet. There is these flower bushes in our garden, though, and I have a vivid memory of when I was a kid. My mom getting mad when I destroyed one only to forgive when I had given her the flowers from them. It's a bit pathetic for her grown child to give her weeds because he couldn't get a word out. But I think the gesture meant the same for her like it did for me. She finally asked me if I was better living at my dad's, and honestly, I don't know. I know you guys don't think the best of him, and things did seem to be worse when I stayed with him, but he was a decent dad, and I didn't want to just lose him like I did my mom. She said she would speaking to him after our meeting with the school on Monday for the family therapy, and if I was open to the idea of staying with her some nights during the week, too. As of now, Paul had spoken to her, and she already made the appointment for us to see the therapist next week. She also spoke to me about anger management classes, too, and said she would go with me if that what I wanted. I honestly don't know if what's going to happen with school, if the therapy would work for us, and if I would ever be able to truly let go of my built-up resentment. But I feel like everything's going to be okay. Second story. My boyfriend has been ignoring me ever since I said no. I, 17F, have been dating Robert, 18M, for about 5 months. We met through a mutual friend but started becoming closer once he asked me for my number. I really like him. I'd even say love if it wasn't so early. He was my date to my school dance. He goes to a different school. And after the dance, we went back to his house to just hang out. I changed out of my dress into sweats and a big shirt and just threw my dress over his desk chair. I went over to sit by him on his bed when he grabbed me and put me on top of his lap. We started kissing until he started to pull my shirt up. I've never been really into the idea of sex or anything more than kissing, probably because I'm a private person and just am, in my opinion, too young for that to interest me. I stopped kissing him and told him that I didn't want it to escalate, and he immediately got upset at me. I tried to say never mind and we could do it, but he just got an attitude with me and gave me the cold shoulder. He walked out of the room and left me sitting on the bed. He slammed the door as he left. I was confused because he's never tried to do anything like that or act like that. He was sitting in the living room and he texted me saying, "Leave." And I started to get all my stuff packed together. I got ready at his house. I was walking out the door when his mom asked why I was leaving, and I just told her my mom needed me home before it got too late. Like 10 minutes after I left, Robert called me asking where I went. I replied with, "You told me to leave?" And he got mad saying, "I didn't mean it. You can't ever take a joke. Come back." I said it sounded serious, so I took it that way. And he hung up on me and has been ignoring me for 3 days. I asked our mutual friend if he's heard anything from him regarding me, and he said Robert was pissed he was never going to be able to hit. I don't know why he would say that because he's never talked about me like that. Am I wrong here? What do I do? Edit. Thank you all for the advice. As of today, 3/12/24 at 8 p.m., Robert did finally reply to me and just told me that he wants to talk in person. I'm going to go over to his house tomorrow to discuss whatever there is to discuss. I'm not 100% sure how to use Reddit since this is my first time, so I'll try my hardest to update correctly. Relevant comments. Commenter, it's okay if it's not right for you. Dump him and move on. He's just not the guy, and that's okay. He's putting his needs before yours, and it's clearly emotionally underdeveloped. Unfortunately, that's of this age. You can do so much better. Thank you for this comment. I feel like some people are blaming me for not seeing the red flags, but like I said before, he's never been like this at all, so those red flags weren't existent before this. Commenter, you are not in the wrong here. It sounds like he never even broached the subject with you before this. He wanted you, and when you rejected him, he showed how big of a baby he is. Cut him loose and find someone worthy of you. Oop. We have never really talked about sex, but when it has been brought up, I try to shut it down because, like I said, I'm not really into that. I thought by shutting down the idea when brought up would show him that I'm not really ready/into it. I probably should have elaborated more, but too late for that now, I guess. Commenter, old guy says, sounds like trouble to me. I'd avoid being alone with him again. He can talk over the phone. Do you have a mom or an older sibling you can trust to talk to? Oop. I've talked to my older sister who is 24 about it, and she told me the exact same thing all of you are saying. I only came to Reddit because I was feeling like I was in the wrong and needed more than just my sister's opinion. She's never liked R, so maybe I thought she was biased IDK. I understand now. Commenter, this is a huge red flag to get out now. He is abusive and controlling. He's young and may grow out of it, but I doubt that he will. How do his parents interact? That will give you some answers as how he is going to be with you. Oop. From what I've seen throughout these past 5 months, his parents are angels. His mom and dad act as if they are soulmates and would die if they lost each other. They have always been kind to me and my family, but I don't see things behind closed doors, so maybe it's all a front. Update. Hi everyone, this is an update to my post yesterday. I'd be lying if I said it went easy, and before I go into detail, please don't comment saying I told you so, because I most definitely do not want to hear that and 100% know who was right. But at the end of the day, I made the decision to go over and end it, also to get my things back. I'm glad I went over, to further fully comprehend who he is, and if I could go back in time and do it again, I would. This will be a long update. I went over to his house at around 3, right after I got out of school, and brought our mutual friend with me. I explained my side of the story to him, and he's on my side and thinks it was disgusting of Robert to say that and act that way towards me. I wasn't too scared to go inside since I knew I had backup, as well as his parents being home. I replied to a comment saying I wouldn't have agreed to go if they weren't there. We both walked up to the door and knocked. Robert opened the door and gave our friend, I'll call him Quentin, a nasty look. Robert asked Quentin why he was with me. Quentin said he was there to make sure nothing happened. Robert invited us in, but kept the look on his face as Quentin walked in behind me. We went to his room where all my stuff was in a bag, and Quentin sat next to me on the bed while Robert sat in his desk chair. Before I could start talking, Robert cut me off to say how sorry he was and that he didn't mean to make me uncomfortable. I wanted to think it was a sincere apology, but because of this whole situation, there was no way it could be sincere. I said, I know you said you're sorry, but how do I know it won't happen again? I don't trust you anymore, and I can't be with someone I don't trust. And his face immediately changed. I stood up to grab my bag of stuff when Robert sprung up and pushed me back onto the bed to make me sit down. Quentin got up and told Robert not to start stuff he can't finish. Robert got in Quentin's face and started yelling random insults at him and accusing Quentin of being the reason why I decided to end it. I stood up and told Robert to back off and that he ruined this relationship the second he tried to pressure me into having sex with him. Robert shoved me, and that's when his dad came to the room. The yelling was loud enough for him to hear from the living room, and seeing that I was just shoved, his dad yelled his name. Robert turned to the door and was standing there like he did nothing wrong. His dad told me that he would take it from here and to get all my stuff, and if I forgot anything to message him and he would return it. Quentin grabbed the bag while I thanked his dad, and we both left unscathed. I had a talk with his dad about what happened, and his dad basically chewed him out for how he treated me and how that's not how you treat a woman. I thanked him again because he de-escalated the situation by coming in the room. Yeah, I was shoved and Quentin was insulted, but the both of us agree that this is the best outcome. His dad basically saved Robert from being beat up in his own home by Quentin. Quentin is 6'2", 250 pounds. I'm lucky enough that this was the outcome and that I wasn't sexually assaulted or anything of the sort. Thank you all for the advice, and for those who called me as dumb as a doormat, this doormat left him. Robert is blocked, and both I and his father will not allow him to reach out regardless of the circumstance. I appreciate all the concerns and worries, but I will not be dating anyone until I heal from whatever BS this was. Thank you, everyone. Relevant comments. Commenter: I wish I had been as strong as OP when I was her age. OP: I was only able to do it because of all the advice I got from everyone, and it helped boost my confidence. Top comments. Commenter: I'm glad to hear you broke it off and you're safe. Take care of yourself. Commenter: You made really smart moves on your way out here, especially considering your age. I wish I'd had that kind of forethought and backup at that time in my life. Well done, and may you find healing sooner rather than later. You'll be all right. Commenter: I saw this behavior coming from a mile away. You should always be wary of a guy who sulks or throws a pity party after you say no to sex. It's a sign that a man will eventually become physically abusive towards you. I'm so glad you ended this relationship before he could show you too much of that side of him and seriously hurt you. How do you like these stories? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.